We talked about how we could move into action. Um, and you talked about voting, right? But what are ways that we honestly need to prepare for what is to come? Other
The
than get you your generator and get you your water, get to a black farmer immediately. But anyway,
Well, that I think those are all the things, right? What and we've talked about this in other segments. The biggest thing is we need to start building the tent. For those of you that watch that are Christian, right? It's gonna rain. Noah kept saying it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. Like, listen, I'm building this big ass boat for y'all to get in, but it's gonna rain, it's gonna rain. And what I'm here to tell you is it's gonna rain. It's gonna rain. Get back to your communities. Get back tied in because you're going to start needing one another at a level that you have not understood. And the thing that makes it so disheartening about why it's so easy to do is because we have technology, so it's so much easier to get back into the tent in a way that it wouldn't have been 30, 40, 50 years ago. Get back into the tent. If you are somebody that's living your life and you are not seeing Black people 60% of the time, then you need to start making some decisions about how you can start seeing Black people 60% of the time. Because there's going to be a hurting that all of us feel, and the way that we are going to collectively be able to rally out of this and to get through this is with each other. But you can't be with who you've never been around. So if you are not seeing, so be very clear, become educated, get more civically minded and find out what's happening locally. But most important, if you're not seeing Black people 60% of the time, you are not fortified in your position as far as knowing what's to do next. And the plain way, I'll leave it for all of our more our folks in the hood. Figure out who is the signal for run. Because everybody knows once one Negro starts running, everybody gets to run. And what I'm telling you is right now, if anybody under the sound of my voice who watches this, figure out who you gonna be watching when it's time to run.
I'm glad you said that, when you started and said it's going to rain hard, Ark Republic is after the Ark, ARK, and so, another way I call it, my nickname for the Ark is the mothership. And so we need more people to operate as those vessels to carry us over. And so I'm so honored that you have offered your intelligence, your life's work, and your understanding of the matters of the worlds to be the vessel to help carry us over with this critical information. And to add to what it is you're saying, me working now more so in the agricultural space, and what's going on is food systems have already been broken down. And so you really do need to figure out exactly how you're going to eat, and not just anything, but like the sustenance things and the water and things like that are going to be very, very, very critical, especially for those living in the urban areas where you have to rely on city utilities a little bit more than if you're living in the rural and you're not next to a well. And you have that well water. And I think what happens in U.S. media, we don't like to talk about these very hard conversations because we think that we cannot be in these situations. You know what I'm saying? But we very much are. We are as vulnerable as the next nation.
Well, but that's why I think I think, and this is not a segment about Joe Biden, but that's why I think that people need to understand how him being old in many ways can be to Black folks' advantage, right? I think that we don't see it that way because oftentimes you and I, Kaya, you and I both know this. Oftentimes, folks that are older don't have the same amount of energy, right? Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that, and oftentimes they're wiser. So what they do is they get the most energetic, young person that they feel like they can trust, and they tell them, you go handle it, right? And what I'm saying, I guess what I'm seeing, right, is that very thing happening, is that there's these younger people right? That are people in your generation. I'll give you one big name that many people don't probably have never heard of, Shalonda Young, right? Shalonda Young is the director of the Office of Management and Budget. She's a Black woman that informs the country about how we should spend $2.3 trillion that's executed in our budget. A Black woman is doing this, right? And so what I'm saying is a Black woman that's your age, right? That's in Generation X, right? For however you feel about Kamala, she's in Generation X, right? If you start looking across the span, if you think about Cedric Richmond, who's heading up the DCCC, right, to prepare for what you'll see across the board are people that are your age, right? They're not all of these old timers running this. It's younger Black people in many ways, or younger people of color that are the ones that they're looking for the leadership. Reach out to them, call them, talk with them, right? And invite them. And I'm not saying everybody's going to come and all that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is a lot of what we're looking for, we are looking at. We just don't realize that we're looking at them.
I know we're supposed to cut this off because I know both of us have a time restriction, but thank you for acknowledging that. I think Generation X is in I always say this, and this is what you're talking about. We're old enough to know better, but we're still young enough to do better.
Exactly.
So we represent this very interesting bridge because a lot of us have parents who are have aged, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with them. And then we have children in college, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with them. And we're in the middle, maybe even kind of, I don't know if we can think about retirement now, but we have skin in the game. We have life lessons that we can impart. What I can say at the same time is that the difference between a boomer, this is for like millennials and Gen Zs are like, oh, boomers don't understand, is that one of the things I think a lot of us Xers emphasize is you got to respect the boomers. They came up and they came through a time that we can't fathom if we could even make it, let alone you can make it. So this is what you were talking about in our earlier conversation in terms of allowing what that grace is. And as my father said, who's 75 years old, he said, I done did what I had to do. I'm out this. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be on the sideline, watching my grandchildren and my children do what they have got to do. But I've put in my work. Don't expect me to put in anything else, right? But let me say this. Can I just say this? But the difference between the boomers and the Generation X is that I've seen a lot of people, my age mates, in these positions either coming into power that are far more transparent and accessible than boomers were.
So this is where I promise you, I am a co-author of the book When Wait Your Turn Means No Turn at All. And it's a millennial perspective on all of Black life. So it's not just, it's Black church, it's Black college, it's Black family, and it's Black citizenship. And what you've just described is what we talk about. My husband and I talk about in this book. Generation X is the bridge, and millennials are the translators on that bridge. You guys are the bridge. You are holding up both sides. We are the translators. And this is what I'm saying, Kaia. We are abdicating our responsibility to translate because we're too upset that we didn't get what we wanted. And this is a clarion call for those that are Generation X. Keep being the bridge. Keep standing in the spots. Keep being transparent. Keep doing all those things, because your upbringing by being a latchkey kid and all the things that you went through have now made you the rebels that me and my generation are looking up to. Keep being that. Keep being that bridge. What I'm saying to millennials is stop using your voice to complain. Use your voice to translate. And what do I mean by translate? There are things as millennials we understand that our kids that we're raising that are Gen Z and Alpha, really Gen Z and Alpha. I mean, I got a Gen Zer in the house and an Alpha, right? There's things that we understand as millennials that we understand why boomers are the way that they are, and we are not teaching them why that is the case. And so what I'm saying to you is, Kaia, I think this is a salient point, and I hope that I can split it up and put it on my own social media, is the understanding that Generation X, you're not forgotten. You are a part of this foundation that's carrying us to the other side. We need you to carry us. And millennials, we need you to get on that bridge, get committed to staying on that bridge, and translate for all the people that are crossing back and forth. Translate the meaning of why boomers are so secretive. They are secretive out of pride. They are not, they wanted to make life better for you. So there's things that you don't know. And now that you want to know how the sausage is made, you got to go ask them, not beg them to give you the information or berate them for not doing it. Older people, you have to understand that if you want to spend time with us, it can't be thinly veiled into, well, what you doing or why haven't I seen you? No, come sit down and say, hey, I would like to take you to lunch. There's some things I would love to share with you. I guarantee you that a millennial is going to be open to having that conversation. But if you try to shame us into, we haven't stopped by the house or you haven't seen us or whatever else, shame is not a tool that's going to foster relationship. So what we have to do, Kaya, is your generation has to be resolute in the fact that you're the bridge.
Right.
We
Right.
can't do this without y'all. And millennials, you need to get off of your butt and stop complaining and get into the work of translating what's happening, what innovation has done in our communities, and why it makes it difficult for us to talk to one another across generations.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm glad that you are calling to action and accountability, millennials, because as a Generation X, especially now with the 50 years of hip hop celebrating, I often sit and I'm gonna keep it 100. Like, what are we celebrating? What exactly are we celebrating in these 50 years of hip hop? The fact that we have allowed the most influential musical genre to be so co-opted and corporatized that we can't even narrate our own lives. We can't even use it anymore as a political tool. Those pioneers have to get funded through a fund so they can get health care and some teeth in their mouths. So these are, Gen Xers have to also be responsible for their shit, that we did and that we didn't do. And I want to say also this, especially to the younger folks, in terms of trying to understand a boomer. And I'm going to talk about Black boomers. I don't know nothing about white boomers because I'm going to talk about Black ones, because I was raised with 2 Black boomers. And I think people have to understand that, my father, we talked about this, participated in the 1972 Southern University protest. He was arrested. He was expelled. He couldn't come to the campus anymore. And just, I think it was like this year, it was a 2023, there was an issuance of apology by the governor, right? And so my father is not rare. This was a very common thing. So many Black boomers particularly put their physical bodies, their whole careers on the line, thinking that their children would inherit the spoils of their sacrifices. And we didn't. You know what we got? We got crack. I always say this, we got crack because there was no way that the establishment in the 80s and the late 70s would hand it over to the children of resistors and disruptors. So a lot of the angst, I'm talking about Black boomers, I don't know about white boomers, is that they feel that they have failed us in some way because we got crack, we got burnt out urban cities, we got, what do you call these, glass ceilings still, and also we got an affirmative action plan that we did not in wholesale inherit and benefit from, right? So a lot of Black boomers are kind of sort of living in, like, I don't know if it's necessarily regret or remorse, but a sense of failure and that pride that you were talking about, but they will never outwardly say it, right? Their expression of it is different. And because, me living with a Black boomer now, boomers, and having these conversations over the years, I do understand. I do understand that, you know what I'm saying? So, and also a lot of these boomers are coming out the South. So you have these very strict protocols and etiquettes that they have and that they were reared with, some for the good, some for not, for the good. And so we have to work through that. But I would say Generation X is that we were also the generation that I think really kind of tried to be as capitalistic as possible. We weren't given these spoils, and that was our huge failure. And as a result of that, I think a lot of us are dying earlier than what we are supposed to, and we're not as healthy as we need to be in order to carry, those things on. And so those of us with perspective and with the level of agency, this is how we move forward. So I thank you with that for that.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, I think on after the clarion call and make it something far more sweeter. For those boomers that are watching, you did not fail us. And I want boomers to understand, and I'm Christian and I'm pastor's wife, so I'm going to give this analogy, and it's in the book. The Israelites were put into captivity, and because they were put into captivity, they lost their temple, blah 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 blah. And then 70 years later, they go to reestablish this temple, and or sometime later, I think it's 70 years. I don't know. That's for my husband to know. But anyway, the site is the young people excited about the foundation that they've poured for the new temple, and the older people are just weeping because in their mind the temple is never going to be what it used to be. And I think that to boomers, I need y'all to understand that you did not fail us. Your tenacity, your romanticization, your whatever it was, is the reason many of us want to rebuild the temple again anyway. Mm-hmm. Your hard work, the memories that you have, the things that you sacrifice, the relationships, the character, we want to have those same things. And the only way to do that, and I think this is hard for them to understand, is for us to build something too. And it doesn't mean it's going to be what you build, right? If you use a biblical parallel, David wasn't able to build the temple. David was only able to put together all the supplies. And my thing to boomers is, you guys have done your job. You put together the supplies. It is now our responsibility to rebuild the temple.
All right, we're going to leave on that note. We rebuilded the mothership too. Thank you, Dr. Nelson, for talking with Ark Republic. Until next time.
Let's embark on the Ark Republic to hear current news that's published. More than gossip and chatter, covering current affairs that matter. We talk issues with professional views, all keeping you in queue. We wanted a higher vibe for these days and times, to free the voices and minds, reporting the sign of the times, so all can build. Let's shine, yeah.